This lesson is called Using Styles. So to get started, let's create a blank document, nice and fresh. I'm going to go to File, New, Blank Document, and we're zoomed in here at 150%. You can hold down your Control key, and you can use the scroll wheel, or you can come down the bottom right corner to control your zooming. We're going to start by just creating some fresh text. We want all of it to only be just the standard normal formatting. So I currently have my normal style selected, and if you just start typing, you'll start off with normal style. So I need a bunch of paragraphs, so I'm going to use a function that you can use in Microsoft Word called the random function. And to do that, you do equals RAND open parentheses, close parentheses. And that'll generate, I think, 5 paragraphs. But we want a lot more than that. So inside of these parentheses, I'm going to say 30, comma, 5. And what that's going to do is create 30 paragraphs, 5 sentences each. Now I need to make sure that my cursor is all the way on the outside of that function, and then I can hit enter. So here it is. If you look down the very bottom, you'll see I have 4 pages, 2,300 words. I'm going to scroll to the top. I can also do Control Home on my keyboard to take me to the top. I'm going to do that. Control and then tap Home. So here I am at the top. We're going to create a title page real fast. I'm just going to say title. That's the title of my document is title. I'm just going to click it once, and I'm going to come over into my styles on my home tab, and I'm going to use the title style. And obviously we can change that. It could be anything we want, but just for now I'm going to do that. I'm also going to hit a return here, and then I'm going to create a page break. So I'm going to hold down my Control key and tap enter, and that makes a page break. And so you can see up here I have title. It's all by itself. I'm just going to make this title of document. Just make that a little more clear. And I can click in it, and I can change the alignment to center. I can make that bigger, smaller, something if I wanted to. Maybe change its color. I'm going to triple click to select the whole sentence and go over here to my font color, and maybe I want that to be like this green. There we go. Blue to me always kind of looks like it's hypertext or something. And look at that, I got a little problem here, a little grammar problem. I'm going to right click and take its suggestion. There we go. So I have title of document, I have page break. Now, if you're not used to seeing things like little dots between words and paragraph markers and things like page break, that's because you don't have this little command turned on. It's in the Home tab in the paragraph group, and it's called Show Hide, and it shows your paragraph marks. I highly recommend having it because of all the things that it can show you that really you need in order to edit properly. So there we go. I have a page break which pushed me all the way down to here, and we're going to do some formatting. I'm going to say that I've got some different headers for these different things that I'm talking about, right? So I'm just going to hit my enter key here and pretend like these are my different headers. So I'm just on a few of these paragraphs. I'm going to hit an enter after a few words because these are my headers. And I'm going to come down here a few more times. Okay. And here I want to do it maybe like that. Okay. So what we have here are like these different sections of your documents or different headers. Like here we're talking about one thing, and here we're talking about another thing. And so in Microsoft Word, it's very important that we apply a style uniformly throughout your document. Every time you have normal paragraph text, it should be normal paragraph text style. Every time you have a header, that's a main header, it should be header 1. Anytime you have a subheader, it should be header 2. And then so on, header 3. Anytime you want to make a strong, bold point, like you normally would say bold, instead of making it bold, you would use your strong style. Anytime you used a quote, you'd use your quote style, and so on. It's very critical that we're uniform. We don't want to do things like sometimes when we want that bold, we choose bold. And then sometimes when I have a bold statement, I choose strong. And sometimes when I want this to be header 1, I choose header 1. But sometimes when I want that to be header 1, I just make it kind of similar. I make it blue and I make it a little bigger, and you know, it's not even the same font. Calibri Light, and this is Calibri Body. Even if I made this light, you might say, well, they're the same thing. Does that really matter? You know, all my headers look the same, and I have some different type of emphasis here. Does that really matter? Well, it turns out it really does matter, because we want uniform formatting so that we can very easily change our document. So if I wanted to change all of my header 1s, they would all change together because they're all associated with the same format. So let's take a look at what I mean by that. So here's our styles gallery. It's on the home tab. It's called the gallery. You might not see a big long one like this. This is because I'm on a 4K monitor, so it can show a lot. Sometimes you can only see like just a few of these. I'm going to go ahead and open up my dialog box opener for my styles. Now when I click that, this pane opened up, and it's a floating pane that shows me all of my styles. I can easily dock it. I just put my cursor in the very top. I get a 4-way arrow. I drag it all the way to the end and let go, and it docks it right there. Okay? And I can even control how much I want to see of it. I can even pull that over a little bit. By putting my cursor right between the two, I get a double arrow. I can click and drag, and I can make that even wider. Okay, so now it's showing me all my styles, and yes, it is the same as your styles up here, but if you ever need to change to some of these other tabs, guess what? All your styles are still right here. So I highly recommend it for several reasons that we'll talk about. So we want all our styles to be the same. So all of this is normal text. Look, when I highlight it, what do I see? Normal, right? So if I just click my cursor in this paragraph, normal. If I click my cursor up here, this is heading 1. If I click my cursor here, oh, this is normal text. Really? It doesn't look like normal text. It is normal text that has been augmented. I started with normal text. There's no style name for what we did. It's just normal, and with all this augmentation that's happened to it. We changed the color, we changed the size, we changed the font. So if that can cause a lot of problems. So what we want to do is make sure everything is uniform. So I just click anywhere in that sentence, and I go over here and click heading 1. Now I know that's heading 1. I click here, I go heading 1. Now I know that's heading 1. I come down here and I say this is heading 1. Oh, over here, what did I want all of this text to be? Because it's in the middle of a sentence, I need to highlight all of it. And I say I want that to be strong. And this, I want this to be strong, including that word you right there, strong. There we go. So these are all heading 1s. And now I'm going to come down, and let's make this heading 1 too. I'm going to come down here to where I had these. I've decided that I want these to be heading 2. So I'm going to change all of these to heading 2. And you can see part of the formatting for heading 2 is how much space should be between each paragraph. And so the space changed. We can talk about that. Also, there's some like an extra space. If I did not have my paragraph show hide on, I would not be able to see that I have an extra space right there. So I'm going to delete that, and somehow a comma got in there, and here's a space. There we go. So these are all heading 2, okay? Now you say, that's fine and dandy. That's nice. I have heading 1s and I have heading 2s, but I don't like those heading 1s and those heading 2s. They stink. Shouldn't I just create my own and call it like big and medium and small, or level 1, level 2, level 3. No, we want to keep words headings, but simply change them to be what we want. So let's take a look. Here's heading 1, right? What can I do? I can highlight all of it and then make it anything I want. Watch. I'll change the font color to black. I'll change the font size down to 12, and I'll make it bold. Okay? This is how I want my heading 1. I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger. Okay. This is what I want heading 1 to look like. So here's the trick. We simply highlight what we like, and then we can go to heading 1, and there's a little drop-down arrow right next to it. And the very first choice says, update heading 1 to match selection. In other words, make all the heading 1s, anything that's heading 1, make it match what I've currently selected in my document. So I'm going to select that. And instantly, everything else that's heading 1 now looks the same. These are all heading 1. And look over here. Heading 1 has now changed. So down here at the very bottom, I have something called Show Preview checked. If I don't show preview, I just see the names. If I do show preview, I can actually see, hey, look, heading 1 is like black now, and it's a little bolder, and it's a different font. So all of those changed for me. And let's do the same thing with heading 2. These are, maybe make this first one heading 1. But these are, let's say they're all under heading 1. These are all heading 2s. And I've already changed them to heading 2s. But really, I want heading 2 to be also bold. But I want it to be just slightly bigger than my regular text. And I want it to be black. Make it just a little bit bigger, like that. And maybe even I want it to be italicized. Let's try that. So I get it the way I want it and highlight it. Go to heading 2, do the drop down and say update heading 2 to match selection. Now all my heading 2s look like this. So I could click here and I have some text under heading 2, and I put an enter here and I have some text under heading 2. And you see that text is not heading 2 text, is it? It's different. See, this is a little bigger and it's italicized. Enter, start typing. So I have these heading 2s and I have heading 1s. And as soon as I hit heading 2, notice heading 3 magically appeared. They've been set up to, in the styles options, they've been set up to show only when the heading before it has been used. So we don't see like heading 1 through 20 because that would just gum up the works. And I should say right now that typically we do not want to use more than heading 1 and 2. Heading 3 is really pushing it because it creates a very large table of content. So you just want to be careful. So we want to make sure that everything here has a style guide, a style associated with it. So we want to make sure that everything here has a style associated with it. So let's say this was a quote. I would highlight it. I could come up here to maybe intense quote and click there. And now I get that format. I wouldn't want to try to create this. And then if I decided later that I didn't like intense quote that way, then I'd have to change every single one of these. I only want to change it one time. So why don't we look at changing that right now? So we already know that I could highlight this and change it to whatever I want, but you can also do it the other way. I can come over here to intense quote and I can choose modify. And this brings open a dialog box with the name and the style it's based on. It started off as normal and then we turned it blue and we italicized it. And all kinds of cool things like we inserted a line here and lots of cool features that we've done to it. There's even a format tab down here where I can look at things like at the paragraph level. And here I want 18 points before and 18 points after. That's very unique. So you can take any of your styles and you can decide how much space I want before the style and how much space I want after the style. And over here on line spacing, it's showing me that I have 1.08 lines of text in between each line. So if I check this, you can see I have single space and space and a half and double space, and I can even do exact. But this multiple is handy because with multiple, you can choose things like single line and things like that. So, and if you use exact, you can use points. I'm going to go back to multiple, and it's just one line of text. Or I could do 0.08 like I had before, line of text. That gives you obviously just ever so slightly more than single lining, and that's just kind of a popular way to do it. Okay. You can also check a box here, don't add space between paragraphs of the same style. So in other words, if I had two quotes next to each other or two header ones next to each other, I'd say no, don't ignore this rule about spacing, because that rule is just to separate different styles. But for the most part, we do, even if we have the same thing, we do want that spacing. So I'll say okay. But here, I mean, we might change and say, no, I want green color for that, and say okay. Well, why did that change to green? Well, because it is linked to this style, and I just changed that style to green. And every other place I use that style will now be green. So now we have a very uniform document where everything has had a style applied to it. Wherever I click, I can see that it's normal, it's a heading 1, it's a heading 2, it's a quote, something has been assigned to it. And that's how our document should be. They shouldn't all be normal with changes we're making, like making it bold, or we're changing its color, or we're making it bigger. No, define a style if you need to, and then assign it. So let's do one more thing, since we're talking about defining styles. Let's say I do have some unique times when I need something in this other font, and I need it kind of smaller, and get down here, and I need it to look like that sometimes. So we're going to define our very own style. So all I have to do is just click in here somewhere, and it will see the whole paragraph. And now we're going to define a new style. We come here to the bottom of our styles pane, and we have 3 buttons: New Style, Style Inspector, and Manage Styles. I'm going to go to New Style, and we can give it a name like Style 1. I'm just going to call it like Super Bold. Maybe even call it Arial, because it's using Arial. It's a paragraph style, and notice it was in a paragraph. And because it's a paragraph style, we can apply paragraph formatting, like how many spaces before this paragraph, how many spaces after, how many spaces between words, between lines in the paragraph. We can define all of that. So I can go to Paragraph Format button down here and choose Paragraph. And so I can make all of these changes before, after, inside the paragraph. All of that I can make, all these changes, and say OK. And now I have a brand new style called Super Bold. So anytime I need that, I could highlight some text and say Super Bold. Now, because it's paragraph, and even though I highlighted just part of a sentence, it did the whole paragraph, because we told it was paragraph formatting, not just line formatting, not just character formatting. It was paragraph formatting. So it did it to the whole paragraph, which is very useful because you can just click and hit it. Okay, there's just one more thing we need to cover, and that is, boy, is there a lot of styles up here and a lot of styles here. And this can be kind of a hassle, right? Constantly looking through all of these styles to find the ones you want. So we want to be able to control these. So we can come down here to the very bottom where it says Manage Styles, and if I click on it, Manage Styles, I can come over to my Recommended, and over here on my Recommended tab, I can actually move these and change their order. Like normal, but super bold I don't use very much, so I'm going to move it down. And as I click it, it comes down. It's changing the number, 8, 9, 10, 11, 10. Now, I mentioned the headings. Do you see how all the headings are here? Heading 1, 2, 3. Do you see heading 3 says hide until used? Meaning I have to wait until I use heading 2 before I'll even see heading 3. But maybe we always want to see heading 3. So I can come down here and say show. Otherwise, it's show until used. I can also select any of these and hide them almost permanently. Like I never use subtitle emphasis, so I just want it hidden. It just isn't in my list at all. So this is how I can change what's in my recommended list. And I can even change the order they're in. Say OK. So now my list is a little bit smaller, but I could actually make my list even smaller than that. So if I come down here to my options, I can change select styles to show, and I can change it from recommended to in use or in document. So if I say in document, in current document, and say OK, these are the only ones I'm currently using in my document. They're the only ones I'm ever going to use in this document. I don't use any others. So why have such a huge long list? So these will always show up here because I'd have to change these separately. Strangely, you do have to change these separately. So let's scroll up to the top of our document. I'm just going to click on this once again to see that we're using title here. Here's everything else we're using in the document because we used options to be able to see that. And we even learned how we could reorder these. The only thing we didn't talk about was actually clearing one of these. So if you select any text that has formatting associated with it, you can clear it. And there's always a way to clear, and you can open up the bottom of your styles, and there is clear formatting available right here. If you click it, it takes you back to normal because everything starts with normal. And I'm going to hit Control-Z to undo that. So there's our basics on applying styles to a document. And the important point I want to make is that you need to have a style of some kind applied to everything, and it needs to be uniform. If it looks the same, it needs to be the same style. If it's something unique, give it a name, create a style, change a current style, but everything should have some style assigned to it. That's especially important when we talk about building a table of contents, and that's in another lesson that you can watch.